Matt Makins here. Time for AgNow weather. Let's get to the hazards. First off, mostly going to reflect heat. We also have some wildfire smoke that we'll chat about here in a moment. And then we're going to have a rapid onset of some drought conditions across a lot of the plains as we go into August. So a lot to sort through. Let's just talk about the hazards on the way for this week. So now through the end of July, watching for heavy rainfall here in the upper Midwest, parts of the Great Lakes through Ohio and Tennessee valleys, down into the southeast. These are the heavy rain areas. In addition to that, we could see some additional heavy rainfall and some flooding down in South Texas. That area of rainfall surrounds a big dome of some heat. So hot temperatures here, some record setters as we wrap up July for the Central Plains. And this area will expand into the first week of August. There's also a number of wildfires happening across the Northwest and throughout Canada. Here is a look at the map plotted with those fires, the red triangles, and the smoke plume. You can watch the smoke and our terrible visibility and air quality issues from that smoke over the next couple of days. We can expand this on social media, so in days ahead, I try to post this map and keep folks ahead of the smoke the best I can. And we'll have more on that in just a minute when I show you the precip totals map. We'll have the fires on there. We'll see if there's any relief in store for the fire areas. I want to touch on the soils. Here's a look at the drought monitor that was released on the 25th. And we have still a significant drought across the south into parts of the northwest and the northern Rockies there, and off to the east as well. I'm going to take the abnormally dry picture off, the yellows. Not technically drought, just abnormally dry. So let's take that off, and I'm going to add in the corn areas. So all corn areas, all those counties shaded in green, we're still doing pretty well as far as drought with corn. Now, it's a different story off into Virginia and things, but vast majority of the corn belt is drought free. What about cotton? Down to the south, we have to worry about some of that cotton area, as well as the southeast. So there's some drought impact on the cotton, but if you notice the last couple of weeks, we had a great little spike in some of the cotton conditions last week's report. So that was nice to see. Here's a look at the hay areas, and of course we've got a tremendous amount of hay that's ready to go. We've got fairly reasonable alfalfa prices as well, depending on where you are, obviously. But with a minimal drought impact on our hay areas, now may be the time to snag cheap hay if you find it, because you're going to need that for feed as we go through a drought cycle coming ahead the rest of the year and into next year. You'll want that hay on hand. That's getting way out there, right? Let's talk about the near term. Here's the timeline with the storm flow. This starts on Friday, July 26th, and runs through just about 10 days or so. We do have a number of thunderstorms here popping up, but by and large, if you compare this video to, say, a month or 2 months ago, that is a much quieter estimated storm flow for the next week. And that's why we have drought growth in a lot of areas. And it's going to be rapid, especially across the plains as we kick off August. And as I have been doing, I'm just going to keep my mouth shut and run through the timeline for you, and you can pause where appropriate to see the storm flows as they move your way. All right, turning to moisture, and I promised you a map with some of the fire areas still highlighted here with the red triangles. We don't have a lot of water coming to those fires in the northwest, so that smoke is going to continue. Parts of Canada, yeah, some of those fires do have some rain on the way. I don't know if it's going to be enough rain to douse those fires, so they may come roaring back, I'm afraid. But as far as total precip, you can see this little band of kind of monsoonal-like flow from Mexico into Arizona, New Mexico, parts of Colorado into Wyoming. Not a lot of water there, and it's mostly focusing on the high country. Then we have this band of some rainfall in here, kind of this swath, if you will, and that's some of the highlight areas I showed you previously on kind of the significant weather map for the heavy precip that's going to be falling. Some of these totals here, and we'll apply down to the Corn Belt here. So Iowa, here we have Wisconsin, moving into Illinois and Indiana and Ohio. Down to the south, kind of moving more into the Appalachians, we're going to have anywhere from, well, 1.5 inches to 2 inches, perhaps some 3-inch totals there, and some pockets of that up to the north. But for the most part, you can see the swath in here, the lighter blues, that's anywhere from 1/2 to 1 inch, and that's a total over 7 days. Not a lot of water. We're kind of tapering that off as the drier impact moves in for August. And we can discuss that now in the weekly outlooks. So temperatures first, there's the very last few days of July into early August, first week of August, 2nd and 3rd. heat is building in across the west, it's going to be problematic for us, especially across the west, northwest, and at times the plains throughout August. So heat is building in. Here's a look at the precip during those same time steps. Here we have the bullseye of water down to the south, the southeast, and up over the upper Midwest to wrap up July. Here's the first week of August, notably drier with the exception of the eastern areas. There we go into the second week of August and third, and we're still looking at pockets of precip for the most part for the western half of the country and a greater chance of some moisture here across the southeast. But a drier impact moving in with that warmer impact. And of course, when you combine those two things, we have to worry about drought. And here's the outlook for the first week of August. So we're talking about the 1st through about the 8th or so. And with the heat that's building in across the plains and the Rockies, we have to watch out for this area. This orange shade in here, that's the rapid onset of drought, or at least the likelihood of being so dry, very minimal precip, and very warm temperatures combined in some wind, and we're going to see those drought numbers increase. But we'll have more on that in next week's AgNow weather.